is going on, everybody? Welcome in to the North End Podcast, episode 104. My name is Zach Graham, your host here in the North End, joined, as always, by my good buddy. He's on record as my best friend. His name is Ian Michaud, and we call him E, a.k.a. Lee James, a.k.a. Sebastian Drew, EC, a.k.a. Eastradamus, a.k.a. Pap E. O'Daniel, a.k.a. The Fashionista, a.k.a. Chili Willie, a.k.a. Joey Chestnut, a.k.a. Eon Stockel. E. Midweek here in Austin. Pretty much a slow news week for everybody's favorite team. Still, of course, some things, some rumors, some whispers, some fan discussion to talk about. I know Mooch, I could hear as soon as we started recording, he's amped up for the pod this week. But how are you feeling, my friend?
I'm good, man. Yeah, he's walking around looking for something. We're going to talk about all things Austin FC, regardless if there's many things Austin FC to talk about and discuss. So, we got some interesting tidbits, some sleuthing, some discovery, found some crumbs, ready to talk about that. Outside of that, I'm doing well, rolling along with the new job, enjoying the NBA season. Bummed there was no games last night. That was unfortunate. But I know we're a soccer pod, so I won't let people know how upset I am as we're in the midst of the MLS playoffs here. But yeah, looking forward to diving in, man.
Yeah, good to hear about the job. I was going to ask about that next, but rolling right along. This might be just that we might retitle this the new job podcast soon here. Maybe some prospects on this side of the screen too. We'll see.
Right.
But yeah, man, MLS playoffs rolling on as well. We had some teams eliminated. Obviously, the teams that won those series moving on to the second round, conference semis, I guess that would be. Some game threes. We'll get to that. Let's start. And, of course, we'll close it out with some nonsense. But let's start with some of the Austin FC discussion here. The first one was, and this was already discussed, this is when we go to one pod a week, I've noticed like if some of the things we just get beat to now by our friends at Moon Tower or Top Flight, things like that. And that's just the nature of the rotation here. Dani Pereira, for the uninitiated, went on a Venezuelan podcast called Estamos Ready, where it's two Venezuelan nationals are the hosts. One, Carlos Mauricio Ramirez, who is a pre- and post-game analyst, I believe, from what I could find, for the 49ers. I imagine on like their local coverage there. I assume he does other things too, but that was one of the first things listed in his Instagram bio when I looked him up. And so that's what I clung on to there because that's what I know.
Am I missing? There's no 49ers soccer team floating around somewhere in the world, is there?
No, it's San Francisco. Okay. I think it's just so this is I was building this up for you because I know you will appreciate this. His co-host on Estamos Ready is none other than Venezuelan basketball player Grievous Vasquez.
Oh,
remember
shit.
Grievous? Yeah.
Of course, General Grievous, man. He was a fun player. That's awesome.
Yeah, dude. Cool. I was a fan of Grievous. So when I didn't actually listen to the podcast, it was in Spanish. So I left that to, I'm sure Hernan and the guys, they translated it some. We know Landon, mostly fluent there. So let those guys listen to the whole thing. But yeah, man, when they said that Grievous Vasquez was one of the two hosts, it almost made me go tune in just to go listen to him talk. But it's been a while since I heard that name, man. But he was fun in college. He was fun in the league.
That's right. Yeah, college hoops is back. He was a Maryland guy. He was a lot of fun, man. He put up a lot of stats.
He did. He would fill the box score. Yeah. Man, you thought we left the basketball behind in the intro there. So Dani comes on to the Estamos Ready podcast, and obviously they're talking mostly just about him coming up in or with Austin FC rather the last 3 years, starting his young career here, and a couple of the quotes, and I want to attribute these to Hernan and the guys at We Are Austin TV because they've got all the graphics working over there. They've got some of these quotes, and he was talking about changing positions when he got here to Austin. Because obviously we know in the past, like at UVA and coming up, he was more of a 10, more of an attacking-minded player, really the engine of his team. So unsurprising, right, leading to being the number one pick in the MLS Super Draft back in 2021. He said, I started playing as a 10 in Austin, but it didn't go too well. And so Josh ended up changing my position to defensive mid. He said I was fast and young and good on the ball. Obviously, all those things are true. He said I have more ball control than the vision to score a goal. I don't have that spark to score goals. Every now and then, yes, but not enough to play at the 10 and then adding my own in there. At the 10 at this level, right? We know he's got a ton of skill, but I thought it was interesting to hear him have that, I guess, little bit of self-awareness, because like we have complained about his lack of ability to score goals when he gets into that final third. And then knowing that he's almost all-star caliber in between the 18-yard boxes. So I think it was good. It was good that a Danny Pereira appearance on a podcast, especially one that's not really mainstream here in the States, I don't think, wasn't him saying anything concerning, just given what we have been talking about over the last few episodes.
For sure. I mean, that's a really interesting tidbit, and I must have forgotten about this information because it just seems so foreign to me that the natural instincts that he has defensively, his aggression to like take other dudes out like that, those aren't things that you see from your normal 10s. So I understand obviously the talent level was a little different, but for Danny to have that perspective is great. I hope that he can not talk like maybe in absolutes about that, because I think that's still part of a game that, his game that he can really develop and still be good at. And specifically, especially, if he has the experience at the 10 that he's outlining here. I don't know. That's really interesting to me, because all of his natural instincts, to me, when you watch him play, seem to be defensive mindset stuff, like getting back on defense, getting physical with somebody. How many 10s you see in taking fouls the way he takes fouls, and like the cards he accumulates from his defensive intensity. So that's interesting. It is definitely good that we didn't get any spicy quotes.
Yeah.
Interview. I'm glad Gravis didn't drag anything out of him there.
Yeah.
But yeah, good perspective for Danny. And still, it's kind of a shock to me, again, just because it seems so natural for him at the 6.
Yeah. And so I was also thinking along those same lines. Like, I didn't remember him playing the 10 at all for us. So I went back, like you go look at, and again, we know that the lineup configurations on a FOTMob, even on the league site, right? Yeah. We know Apple TV has put some really funky positional choices out there for our guys before some games, but there he is, playing more of an advanced role in that midfield against LAFC back in April 21. And so I think just because you remember, like, he wasn't that game in, game out, you're locking him in as a starter, even as the number 1 pick. Coming into 22, we were a little bit surprised that he beat out Johan Valencia, because the kind of a little bit of fanfare, at least in terms of the transfer fee and the profile, the pedigree for Valencia coming in after winning the Colombian championship. So I think that and maybe you as well here, just hearing your take on it. I've just been like brainwashed by how good he's been in the defensive half that I didn't even remember that he came in as more of an advanced player in the midfield when this team first started. So he also gave some praise. He said teammates, coaches, watching a lot of film on Sergio Busquets, which would be fun if, of course, Miami, if they would come to Austin for many reasons next year, but to get to see him match up against a guy like Busquets there in the midfield would be fun. He said watching Busquets at the 5 helped me. And he said Alex Rain helped me a lot on my positioning, how to receive the ball in the defensive half, and also in order to defend himself, he had to get a little bit physically stronger. And we've seen some of that pay off, like you just said, like the physicality, not just to be able to fend off defenders or just, be physical on either side of the ball, but absorb some of that punishment that he takes. And we talked about that at length during the season, that it really appears that it's on the scouting report for opposing teams that you want to try to be physical with Danny, because he is a little bit of a hothead, and that could be a positive and a negative, as we know.
Yeah, I mean, he's not going to back down. So, like, I understand that. And obviously, man, this is a great interview. This sounds like
Yeah.
with Danny in particular, like shouting out some veteran guys and having the perspective on who he is as a player right now. I think this sounds really good. With the Alex thing, and like you said before, like we anticipated him getting beaten out by Johan. It's great to see that Alex was kind of landing that leadership role there because, again, it was a position that Alex was playing as well. So, it's a kid who they drafted with a vision in mind to potentially take that spot. So that's a really positive anecdote there from that little interview.
Yeah. And I this is just my speculation, but I wonder if having a guy like Grievous Vasquez on the podcast asking questions, like you can maybe ask questions in a certain manner or just make a player feel a little bit more at home, a little bit more at ease to open up about things like that. I'm not sure. I don't think it hurts.
I would think that he would probably be much more open with that crew than like you and I.
Right, for sure. No question. So the other, obviously, the biggest question surrounding Dani, of course, is the status of his contract. We've talked about our own speculation on what those Generation Adidas contracts are, trying to interpret the MLS rulebook, which is just not 100% forthcoming. Mm-hmm. So we did, if I can use this term, we did a little bit of our own research over the weekend, and then we were actually beaten to the punch in a different manner by our buddy Alex, or by a football critic over there on Top Flight, who I think talked to somebody in Dani's camp, and they confirmed that there are options on this contract, or I should say Austin has team options on this contract. What we were going to talk about, and we will anyways, just to kind of follow up on what those guys were talking about. We went back to the 2020 Super Draft and looked at that GA class and what happened after 3 years with those guys. So it was a 5-man class, and Daryl Dike was in there. So obviously he was sold very quickly and is now playing over in Europe. But the other 4 guys, you had Robbie Robinson at Miami. He was 1. Jack Maher at Nashville. He was 2. Ryan Raposo for Vancouver at 4. And then Henry Kessler at 6 to the Revolution. So just going in order there from 1, 2, 4, and 6, you had Robbie Robinson. His option was exercised last offseason. We know he was with Miami this season. Jack Maher as well with Nashville. Ryan Raposo had an option for this year that was exercised as well. And then Henry Kessler, going back to read the Revolution's option article or press release, he had an option. They declined that and then re-signed him to an extension through 25 with an option in 26. So that's really all the evidence you need, right? Between what football critics said and looking back at the 2020 class. It obviously doesn't resolve the situation because obviously, we talk. Dani has the aspirations to play in Europe eventually. Dani also rightfully wants to get paid more than I would imagine this option is going to give him. And he deserves more than that. Obviously, though, the club also has to be wary, not just of giving Dani a sizable extension, but anybody at this point after what we saw happen with most of the extensions last year. I don't think the fans are feeling too great about Julio's contract at this point, just in terms of that cap hit. We know Diego was moved on in large part to being, overpaid just based on that production. So knowing that the team has control lets me breathe a little bit easier, but the saga is certainly not done.
No, not at all. And I mean, like, I've been upfront about the fact that I would be happy for Dani to achieve his dream and his goal of playing in Europe somewhere. It's just the more that I look at it, it's like if you're going to loan him out somewhere, the return has to be substantial because it's like he's not just a plug and play. He's not just a guy you can find someone else to plug and play and like take over all the things that he can do. Like we just talked about with him having experience at the 10 and having better control of the ball at his feet. Like we inverted, the position there for him, and he was able to still retain obviously all of that skill in regard to controlling the ball, which gives us a point man from the back where we try to play out of. So again, this is not just a dude that we're going to be able to replace. So I'm looking for hopefully something substantial if this plays out the way that I think is most likely, where we get him paid, get him under contract, and then send him somewhere. So I don't know, like, can you offset the cost of that contract entirely with a loan?
I think that would have to be, to my understanding, just in the language of the loan, right? Because I've seen like Kevin Cabral, for instance, DP for the Galaxy, loaned to the Colorado Rapids this past year, and of course, scoring I think one of his 2 goals to tie that match against us at Q2. I know that there was something. I remember reading when that loan happened that Colorado would only be on the hook for part of his salary. So I think you can work stuff out like that in terms of a loan deal.
But that's like that's in the same league. I don't know. There's obviously so much language and legalese that I don't understand at this point. But this is not somebody that we can just like. Do I want a full season of Johan like as the starter? I don't think so. I really don't, because if we look at his body of work throughout the course of his entire career here at Austin, the only consistency we saw was at the end of this season here, where he, is trying to gather 8, 10 good games, solid.
We still weren't winning.
Exactly. With a few clunkers in there. So it's just like, I don't want to see a full-time Johan without any sort of replacement with Dani there. And like, we're moving on from Nicky. And I was like, all right, well, there's clearly a spot that we have to get another player at. We know we're old at striker, and I know we're going to talk about that a little bit, and trying to bring somebody in to be a good supporting cast or to take over our aging striker who's our starter, G, who experienced a shitload of injuries this year because he's breaking down. If Dani's on the way out and it's being loaned, like, it's got to be big. Because then I just think we're looking at too many holes. But I guess I might be looking at it from the standpoint of like next season. And I know that this is a established 3 transfer window ordeal that we're looking at here.
Right. So. Well, and like, I don't personally think a loan is in the cards there. I think it's a sale or a massive trade if he's going in the league. Like we're talking top 3 all-time GAM returns is what I would want if we're sending him to one of our competitors, even if it's in the Eastern Conference. But I think from a team-building perspective, right, like, obviously you want to do right by your guys to a certain extent. And if Dani has 2 option years, which is what I believe that Football Critic said on Tuesday's episode of Top Flight, then I don't know, man. Whatever Dani's on, it's going to be really team friendly. And so again, just from the business side of it, if I'm looking at that and not factoring in any sort of fan emotion at all, I'm just picking up his 2 options and we'll figure it out later, man. Like, that is a hell of a piece to be on whatever. Again, I would imagine that the salary is increasing at least slightly year over year there. But it's not going to be what his MLS market value is, right?
No.
So it's an interesting, like we heard the rumors, right, that like the club has made some extension offers that Dani's can't turn down because it wasn't enough. But again, I think that's where Roto and the front office are trying to balance that. Like, this guy deserves more money, but we can't go crazy because we have this however many step plan in place that we're trying to overhaul this roster, and we just can't go overboard on that. So again, the saga is just not done. And I guess I'll ask you, what do you think the most likely outcome is here by December? I think December 7th is the option deadline day, if I recall correctly. I can pull the MLS offseason calendar up here, but what do you think happens there?
I mean, if I'm, like you said, if I'm Austin FC, I'm picking up the options and trying to get another good season out of Dani on a very favorable contract. I'm sure there's some posturing going on with Dani and his camp right now in regard to trying to get the money that they want and the money that the kid deserves. And I'd be shocked if the value of his option is relative to his actual value in the league, given the miss rate of the GA players. Like, these aren't dudes that are surefire hits that you're locking up for 5-year deals. And it's just like, okay, we're good. We're going to pay you a shitload. So most likely scenario, I think we probably pick up an option and then they're going to have to work on the extension next year. You put it off, you see how it goes and go from there.
Yeah. I think I'm right there with you. And maybe that's something in the summer window as more of the pieces start to align to where we get to the point where Roto can come out in a press conference and say, okay, now we're rolling. So maybe there's extension talk in that summer window next year, because to my knowledge, we can extend him, I think, at any time, definitely in while transfer windows are open. Right.
Yeah.
So I just feel like that's a very, again, from the team building perspective, it's so easy to just be like, yeah, you're on the option. You're here.
Yeah.
It's not always fair to the players.
No.
More often than not, it's probably unfair to a guy like that. But that is what it is. And on the press release from MLS, December 1st is the club deadline to exercise options this year. So December 1st, we will know.
Interesting.
Yep. So we talked about Moon Tower Soccer's report that Nick Lima is going to be traded this offseason to the New England Revolution. And then, on purpose or not, Nick Lima's wife lets it slip on Instagram that the couple is moving. I think she was discussing like different things about nursing. I think we know that they're, newborn baby this past season for the Limas. And so she's on Instagram talking about she had a panic attack when she found out they were moving because she has so much frozen breast milk for her 8-month-old baby. So that's just, again, another, we were talking about some of this last week, just like, it's just another example of like crazy ways that we find out or that we get news confirmed to us. Like thinking back to the Radovanovic and his wife or girlfriend, or I don't remember their status, but on her YouTube talking about, yeah, we're heading back. And that's how we find out things about this club. It's pretty wild.
Well, that is a very interesting one. Got to all that breast milk.
Yeah, and
breast milk.
She was also, I think, in a separate Instagram post or live or what have you, asking for recommendations for like nail salons in the San Jose area. So that caused some folks to say maybe he's getting traded to San Jose. I think that's probably just because that's where he's from. That's also where he played last professionally. I imagine there's family. Maybe he even has a house still out there. I think that's probably like, hey, we're going there for the off season. I would still trust the report about the trade being to New England.
Yeah, that is. Let's not read too much into the nail salon post.
Okay. Another piece of news here. We knew that Finland had 2 more meaningless games coming up in those Euro qualifiers after being eliminated in the October round of games. But Finland did put out their squad announcement, their call-ups, and no Leo Väisänen on the team. So I don't know if this has anything to do with the somewhat poor performance. We know Leo went that first match last month, gave up the penalty, then was benched, did not play in the second one. I don't know if it's performance-based, but just putting this in the Austin FC vacuum, I think it's a positive. I'm sure Leo wants to be there, right? Yeah. But not knowing any of the other factors in it, I think it's a good thing for us because now he's not going to go get hurt in a meaningless game against like Northern Ireland or whoever they're playing.
Yeah, I totally agree. I think it's a very positive thing. I would probably agree with you saying that the poor performance, like why are we bringing him back? Leo's had a rough season. I have a little vacation, man. Okay. Like get away from him for a little bit.
So, of course, there's, as more and more teams start to be eliminated from the MLS postseason, more and more rumors, begin to bubble to the surface. There's, different aggregator accounts that'll say, I think we've heard about, we heard Mbappe potentially, talking to MLS teams. We did get the credible report about Ronaldo having meetings with Sporting KC of all teams last year with, Patrick Mahomes on the Zoom call and things like that. But so there's a couple guys from overseas, and then there's a couple guys that are already in the league that some Austin fans have been discussing, debating the merits of bringing those guys on board. And you talk about aging strikers. two of the MLS names, Joseph Martinez and Chicharito Hernandez. I see you give the double thumbs down there. I do too. I don't know what people are thinking with that.
Just names that are readily recognizable.
I guess, but like, if you don't like Zardes, then what are we doing with these guys? I would say Chicharito is still on another level, but he's coming off an ACL. Like, what are we?
34, 35
or something? Yeah, I don't know.
Coming off an ACL? No, absolutely. I would not welcome either of those players.
Chicharito 35. But yeah, Joseph is washed, man. I'm sorry. Like
I don't think he's completely washed. I do think that he got a huge boost when Messi came. Because for sure. Obviously they had to pay attention to the Leo, and he's putting balls, putting the ball on your foot where you can just tap it in. Yeah. I do think he raised his play a little bit once Messi got here, but I think you'll see a stark, drop off in his production if he, once he leaves Miami. Neither of those dudes fit the profile of this team. Neither of those dudes make any sort of sense to bring in my eyes. If Roto wants an aging striker, I don't think he's going to be looking in MLS. I'm pretty sure there can be a 33-year-old we could find from Europe who would blow these two out of the water right now.
We've already got a 32-year-old aging MLS striker,
Yeah, we do not need neither of those guys.
Well, speaking about the aggregator accounts talking about, random MLS teams have interest in this guy. How about Robert Lewandowski for you? Apparently on the radar for several MLS teams. I don't know his contract status, but when you're talking about aging strikers, give me fucking Lewandowski.
That's the aging striker I will definitely want for the club.
Exactly.
God, that'd be wild.
So
you have to put a net up behind the goal.
Right.
One of his shots would really fuck you up.
Right. That'll kill you.
Yeah. I mean, look, part of me is like, I hope we're not tied right now to anything that's like too obvious, because I'm hoping once again we're playing these cards close to the chest. We have some stuff in the chamber that we're working out. We're looking at to make a larger splash. Obviously, getting Lewandowski is not anything to scoff at. I don't know if he has any sort of connection or tie to Austin FC, whatever the ownership rights may be to talk to the man who owns that, whatever. I don't know nothing about that. But bringing him in would be quite the shock. I just still think that we have something set up that nobody's on, and it's coming down the pipeline.
Yeah. I think it's multiple guys. Again, they're probably not going to be those massive names that everybody recognizes, but like, I don't think those are the type of names that become the top 10 players in MLS. Like, Sebal was not one of those guys, right? Like Dani Bouanga.
Yeah, who were these guys before that? Like, I didn't know Dani Bouanga. I didn't know Leuven. Like, you bring those dudes in, like, and they're studs. And obviously, we know the connections he has. So I'm with you there.
Yeah, but Lewandowski, I would fucking take that. And it does make me think back to Roto saying that names that you couldn't believe. Like, that would be one. That would be
one. I would not believe that for sure.
All right, some quick MLS news here. We had some coaching news. Phil Neville hired as the head coach of the Portland Timbers.
There you go.
Good luck. I did think it was interesting and kind of cool. He's keeping Miles Joseph, who was the interim, keeping him on his staff. So I think that's a pretty smart move, I would think, because it seemed like that, they obviously had better results, whether or not that was because of Miles Joseph or strength of schedule and variance and things like that. But interesting to kind of keep the old head around to have that maybe kind of bridge between the returners and the new coach. Just this morning, Charlotte FC firing Christian Latanzio, which opens the door for the third head coach in 3 seasons.
I don't get that one.
Why
like,
do you say that?
I'm not like in tune with Charlotte FC very much, but
it
just made the playoffs, right? Like for the first time ever. And like it was rocking and like that, like. Then they played a better team. They played a better team in the wild card. I mean, the Red Bulls were a good club. They're a good club.
Yeah, I mean, I don't think there's been anything out of Charlotte in terms of their front office, their player personnel, like that has made me say, "Oh, those guys are doing it right." And this doesn't point that does not help that case to me.
It's the most successful campaign in the franchise's history.
Yeah, and it's a 2-year history. But again, like, obviously both of us are not in the camp of like fire the fucking coach as a knee-jerk reaction to a bad run of form. So yeah, that was a little bit eyebrow raising for me. But this, you got two, right? They started the year after us. They're on their third coach. We're still on our first, and both fan bases are unhappy. So maybe there's some sort of happy medium there that one of us will discover, hopefully us, sooner rather than later. The Loons hired a new sporting director, Khalid El Ahmad, who was the ex-chief executive for Barnsley, which is a club currently in League One over there in the English system. So that's third tier, if I recall correctly. So, that just reading the Bogart timeline there.
I mean, you see the expansion still. Like, you're seeing guys come from across the pond, and it's building. It's gaining momentum.
Yeah, absolutely. And then Inter Miami this Friday going to host NYCFC in a friendly, which is weird, but they're doing it to celebrate Messi's Ballon d'Or, right? Which is his 8th, I believe.
They're doing it to celebrate cash.
Yeah,
This is a very much cash grab. like they're just paying. They got to pay this man somehow.
Yep.
But yeah, I mean, obviously, it's cool that. I mean, he wasn't an MLS player. That's not why he won the fucking award. And
right.
People being like, "Oh, the first ever MLS player to win." It's like he played 7 games. Obviously, the dude's the greatest player of all time. Congrats. Enjoy paying $400 to go watch a scrimmage.
Yeah, 100%. Wonder how long do you think Messi plays in that one? Half?
Plays? He's just going to be chilling.
You can turn it on for 8 seconds and score, right?
Yeah, take a few Curry-esque deep shots, have a little fun. hopefully get a foul within range and let one rip, and then go sit down. But yeah, that's very much a cash grab.
Have we ever seen a soccer version of the Steph Curry, like, look at the crowd while the ball's still in the air type of thing? Right? Has Messi or somebody like that ever just ripped a free kick and just started, turned around celebrating before it even goes in? I don't know. That
Seba chip from the first game this year, he knew right away. He kind of walked it off. You got a little bit of a walk off there.
That's true.
It would have to be one of those lob type shots. Nobody's like, because the rippers,
you're watching it.
You're sending a screamer. Yeah, like there's still stuff going on there. So
yeah. Some Game 2 recaps real quick, just run through all the MLS playoff Game 2s here. Cincinnati did advance on PKs, though, in New Jersey. So Red Bulls are out. And then Matt Miazga apparently entered the officials' locker room after the game. And there was reports that he had to be forcibly removed. There were other reports that he left on his own accord. Regardless, the league is investigating that incident after that match. A match which they won.
Can't do that, buddy. You can't do that.
FC Dallas did force a deciding Game 3 coming up in Seattle. That match will be this Friday, and I believe it was a 3-1 victory there in Frisco for our rivals. So good for them, and we'll get the true, winner take all Game 3 on Friday. Excited for that.
Yeah, I mean, make it hurt worse.
Yeah, I mean, speaking of things hurting worse, how do you think those St. Louis fans are feeling right now? Sporting KC completes the 2-0 sweep in the first round. 1-8 upset in the first edition of the 9-team for each conference playoffs. I mean, the league has to love that, right?
Yeah, especially in a 3-game set, not just one kind of fluke game, getting it, and like they put it on those boys.
Yeah,
like this was not a competition here. I don't know how they're feeling. They probably feel pretty good still. They had a great season.
I would feel fine. I mean, disappointed, of course. I mean, because it also, that's their biggest rival, right? Geographically, I think just emotionally already for them. Did you see the one goal that St. Louis scored in that game? It was just off a cross from like 10 yards on the right side of the box, and it was a cross, and it just goes over Melia, bounces off the post, and in. Wasn't even a shot.
Nice.
So SKC advances. LAFC does complete the sweep of Vancouver. I don't know if you saw how that one ended or not, but it was a little bit wild. Takaoka up in the box, last gasp corner for Vancouver.
Mm-hmm.
Ball gets headed out. Their player is coming up to approach, like try to half volley it back into the area. And the official gets in the way so bad that he knocks over the Vancouver player. 3-on-1 LAFC the other way with no keeper. Bouanga taps it in. They did end up calling it back, rightfully so, on VAR for that ref interference. But it was wild that the ref didn't blow it dead at that point.
That is nonsensical to not blow that dead. You knock a player down?
Yeah. Oh, he was about to take the shot. Oh, man. Well, you know,
not the worst ref in MLS. That's for sure.
Yeah. Well, the best way to avoid having to deal with something like that is, you know, not be down 1-0 at the last second, I guess. So RSL did stay alive at home on PKs. Fantastic free kick goal from Savarino to equalize that one late on after it looked like Houston was maybe going to get through with the sweep there. So that game 3 back in Houston on Saturday. Atlanta last night responding in a big way to force game 3 against the Crew. 4 goals, massive Yorgos header to open the scoring. And then maybe one of the worst misses we've seen of all time. You know, our boy EJ can rest easy because, man, you need to go look at, if you haven't seen the Zonde Silva miss, it was literally 3 feet in front of the net. Nobody in front of him sends it over. Nobody in front of him.
Impressive.
Orlando swept Nashville. So Nashville were scoreless in 6 of their final 7 matches to end the season. So disappointing end for Nashville. The Fighting Felipes press on. And then the final game, too, is tonight, New England and Philly. That one is in New England with Philly leading the series 1-0. Kai Wagner suspended. Our boy suspended 3 games for a racial slur directed at Bobby Wood. I don't think he might not be in the league next year. Kai Wagner was somebody that I definitely wanted us to be interested in. Not so much anymore.
What is going on?
I know. It's wild, man. It's wild.
I
don't get it. I'll take a non-racist Kai Wagner, but that's not the one we currently have in the league.
It's like the most diverse sport in the world. Like
I mean, it is the most global, right?
Like there's like so much reach. Like you are interacting with different people from all sorts of different countries and getting to learn like what the fuck are we like? What is it? This is wild. I never knew that this was such an issue in soccer. Yeah. I mean, like I've heard horror stories from across the way about Italy and just these absolute assholes who do all kinds of terrible things. But in MLS, I had no fucking idea. This is like the 4th or 5th incident.
Yeah, I will say.
Where it's like we're suspending you for multiple games because you said like that. It blows my mind.
I do think it's. I'm sure it has happened with a domestic player saying something fucked up like that. But I think since we've been paying attention to the league, it's only been foreign players, right? You think about Taxi. Kai is German. There was another one.
Red Bulls guy. Red Bull
Van Zier, yeah. Belgian, right? So that's interesting.
Belgians.
Yeah. Yeah, so I mean, man, if Philly advances tonight, that means Wagner going to miss the conference semis and a potential conference final match. So, yeah, I don't get it.
How are you that stupid?
Yeah, I don't know. Man.
Good God. All right.
One piece of last business day here on episode 104 of the North End podcast. You talk about people like disclosing shit on Instagram. Our boy Val Noel, fresh off the MLS Next Pro Cup Final MVP, disclosing the destiny of Chris Pinkham, gave him a happy birthday post. So, happy birthday, Mr. Pinkham. But then like in the bottom, just like put it real small. I'll miss you. And I think that could be Val leaving, but I think it's probably Chris Pinkham leaving. We talked about the FC2 contract statuses of all the players. Mm-hmm. So yeah, and I don't get why put that. So if you're gonna put it on there, just put it on there. We're gonna find it. You know this. We're crazy, man.
I mean, that's like not even making someone find it. It's probably where your eye goes first. I haven't seen the post. It's like, what are they trying to like? You ain't sneaking that by anybody. I mean, you've heard my position. I'm, this stuff with Instagram. I don't know why you're talking about breast milk and people leaving and But I mean, I said with Pinkham, I did think he was somebody on the way out, just given the construction and younger guys that we got to get time for. So wish him well. He's a champion. He'll forever be a champion, 100%. My friend. So take that with you, and best of luck wherever you end up.
All right. Well, we did get some extra last business day news here today. We'll pull this up on the screen right now while we talk about it. David Rodriguez saying his goodbyes to Austin FC2 on his Instagram there. So, you know, we just talked about it, right? That we a couple episodes ago went through all of these FC2 contracts. I think both of us said, snap, yes, let's purchase him.
Yeah.
It appears that, and I guess we probably shouldn't be too surprised that the club isn't investing funds into purchasing guys for the second team. But as huge fans of FCTO, it definitely hurts, right?
Yeah. I mean, it's hard to take this goodbye into account in both what it means for FCTO and like the ramifications it would mean for the first team club. David was, from the start, my favorite player. The dude who stood out to me the most, was always a joy to watch, was super talented. Definitely sucks to see that he's going to, be out of here. But man, what a season. I don't know what else we could have asked for from the kid. He was absolutely fantastic. Just provided a ton of special moments. I mean, the way he played at the pitch, the games that we were able to go see, it was awesome, man. So definitely sucks that he's going to be on his way out. From the business side of it, I understand. Doesn't make it any easier, but it is what it is. And, I know that the main priority for this team right now is the balance sheet and how we're going to get out of contracts and open up money and stuff. So, we said it was going to be a potential long off season of sad goodbyes. And this is definitely one of them.
Yeah, no question. Just for those on the audio only podcast, David's caption here on his post saying, "It was a great year of experience and learning with many ups and downs, but at the end of the day, the goal was achieved. Thanks to all my teammates and coaches and everyone who was there for me. Now to trust in God's plan. Thanks, Austin." So we know David, 21 years old, going back to his parent club, Atletico San Luis. So I think, a kid that we're certainly going to keep up with from afar. And to be honest, I just hope that he's not banging goals in against us at the pitch for one of our rivals next year in Next Pro.
I definitely had, had visions of seeing him at the Q playing with the first team club and everything. Like that was something that I was like, thought could happen and would have been really cool to see. But what a great shot that is. If you haven't seen that, you had an Instagram profile, go check that out. It's a great shot.
Yeah, absolutely. We did have just a little bit of academy news. Not the most positive outcomes here for our boys, but we really appreciate the updates. Regardless, the U13s down 2-0 early to FC Dallas. Come back, tie it up with less than 15 minutes to play. And then in the 84th minute, FC Dallas gets the winner. So the U13s down 3-2 at the hands of FC Dallas. And then the U14s got beat pretty handily, 5-0 at the hands of FC Dallas. But, a season, whether you're U13, U14, or you're in the MLS, it's a season of ups and downs. So, you pick yourself up, dust yourselves off, boys, and good week of practice, and we'll get Dallas next time. Plenty more matchups to come against our rivals there.
Absolutely. And I mean, FC Dallas is synonymous with having a fantastic academy, bringing kids up the pipeline. So nothing to be too sad about. We move on. We press on.
I agree. Goals bracket rolling on here. We are into the Sweet 16 today, E. So just a couple, I guess I could bring this up as I did last week. Mostly chalk, I think, as we've moved through the second round, looking at the West region. This is up for a vote right now as we're recording. So probably when you're listening to this episode, the voting on the West and the East Sweet 16 rounds are done. But you've got the 1, 2, 3, and 5 left here in the West. You've got Diego's looping goal over Martin Paz is the 1 seed in this region. Seba's game winner coming back from injury in the 82nd minute at home against the Loons. That's up against Owen Wolf's game-winning banger at RSL from early in the year. On the east side of things, we've got the 1, 2, 3, and 4. So shout out to the committee getting it right there. No upsets. Alex Ring's game-tying goal at the Revs is the 1 seed in the East. You've got the dual game winner matchup of Zardes at home against Toronto and Maxi at home against Montreal. So that's going to be a highly contentious matchup in the Verde region. 1, 2, 3, and 4 again. So pat on the back to the committee. John Gallagher's banger goal at RSL, both that and Owen Wolf's goal in that game coming 25 minutes apart. It's like, what team was that?
But that shot by Johnny was incredible.
Yeah, you've got Owens, the final goal of the season, right? That header at San Jose, that's the 2 seed there. Then in the Vibes region, you had 2 propaganda tweets from the Corniolas on the Redis 1 seed, takes down the Zardes goal against Dallas, 81% of the vote there. This is the least chalk region left, the Vibes region. We've got the 1, 2, 5, and 6. So Seba's chip against St. Louis that you were talking about earlier, that's going up against Rodney's first goal for the club. That's going to be a big matchup. Yeah. Then you've got Will Bruin's equalizer up in Portland this past year. That was such a huge point for the team at that point of the season. And then you've got Rigoni's first ever goal for the club, making it through to the Sweet 16. So Sweet 16 will finish up by Friday. We will have the Final Four over the weekend. Or the Elite 8, rather, over the weekend. Final Four Monday, championship voting on Tuesday. So when we reconvene next Wednesday, we will have crowned a champion here in the 2023 Goal of the Year bracket.
Very good. It looks like a good matchups here coming down to the wire. So I'm interested to see how it plays out.
I'll tell you this. I think the committee had a little bit of an easier time this year seeding the goals, just because there were so few that really stood out that we knew would have, some sentimental value to the fans and things like that. So that's certainly playing out here in the bracket. Let's close it out with the nonsense. And that's just going to be the bets this week, E. And man, that's gambling, right? But we were so close to just a massive, massive week. Those game 2 bets, we had Cincy plus 245 on the road. They win in PKs, so no good there. St. Louis plus 330, they get upset, so no dice there either. Houston draw, they don't advance through PKs. They were plus 200. We do pick up the LAFC plus 145 on the road. We pick up Dallas plus 140 at home, and then I believe we were a half point, I think, away from binking the NFL 6-team teaser. It was, I think, new rule. We're not betting on Arthur Smith anymore because he's just seems like a doofus.
Look, man, the hit pieces have started to come out. So this man is about to lose his job. Like, I just opened and read it the other day, and I was like, damn, people fucking hate Arthur Smith. I was like, wow, shaved his mustache. So yeah, his days seem pretty numbered. Yeah, I think you lose this week. That'd be the week to do it.
Yep. Well, and I think it's one thing when you're upsetting the fantasy football maniacs like you and I, right? If you get it down to the one and you pull Bijan out and you give Jonnu Smith a fucking jet sweep, right? That's one thing. But then it's another thing to go in and lose to a quarterback who doesn't even know the names of his offensive linemen. And a fifth round pick that started the game. And again, that teaser would have hit. We lost that by a half point. So there's our hit piece on Arthur Smith. We're joining in on the fun. All right, so we're just gonna. What's that?
I do love Josh Dobbs. What a good, great season for the kid.
Former Steeler. We're gonna consolidate the bets here. We're going to have a 3-team parlay that I will let you read off for the MLS game 3s that are already set. And then we're going back to the well on the NFL side of things. So, E, what are we doing here with the soccer?
For the soccer, we are going to all the home teams, which seems smart. Seems like we might have learned our lesson here because it's very difficult to win on the road in this league. So we have some series-defining matchups coming up here. Seattle, you get them at minus 145, hosting Dallas. Like I said earlier, Glad that Dallas got to game 3, so this is going to hurt even worse when they lose. Houston, minus 165 versus RSL. Houston, very difficult to beat down there near the Gulf. Columbus, minus 185 versus Atlanta. You get that 3-pick parlay at plus 318. Go ahead, lock it in.
We'll take the home team parlay here to close out the first round. And then on the NFL side of things, hopefully not getting hooked by any of these coaches here. We're going to go 6-team teaser once again. We're going to start off with the Bengals hosting the Houston Texans and CJ Stroud. What the hell? This kid, I mean,
Legit.
How was he not the first pick?
I do not know. Also, I do think it's partially
got a better team around him
in circumstance with the clubs around him, because that Panthers team is fucking terrible.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, Bryce Young seeing ghosts. We're going to take the Bengals here, hosting the Texans, though. Get them at they're favored by 6.5, so we're going to do the old 7-point teaser, get them down to plus a half point. We're going to go to my Steelers, who are facing off in Pittsburgh against our buddy Jones and the Green Bay Packers. Steelers are favored by 3 at home, so we're going to get the Steelers and 4 points. Almost said Heinz Field. It's always Heinz Field to me.
Yeah, too ugly. That's going to be an ugly game.
Yep. Yeah, it is. 2 teams that are not very good.
No.
We're going to go out to LA and we're going to take the Chargers, who will be on the road because they always are, even at home. They are 3-point dogs to the Detroit Lions, so we're going to get them up to plus 10 at home. Feel pretty good about that. Justin Herbert and that offense. Then we're going to go to Dallas and take the Cowboys, who are 16-point home favorites. I'm not surprised if that gets up to like 17.5 by Sunday afternoon. So we get them down to 9-point favorites against Danny DeVito and the New York Giants. I mean, dude, Tommy DeVito can't throw he's not an NFL quarterback.
No.
And they already beat the Giants by 40 with Daniel Jones. So what the hell's going to happen here?
We might see another dead New York Giants quarterback, because they're just getting these boys hurt all season. That team's bad.
2 more to go. We're going to go to Seattle and take the Seahawks, hosting the Washington Commanders. Seahawks 6-point home favorites here, so we'll get the Seahawks and a point at home, and then we're going to close it out. I believe this is the Monday night game. Bills hosting the Broncos. The Broncos, no idea what's going on there. I think that's a little bit of a mirage. Bills 7.5-point home favorites, so we get them down to half-point favorites. That 6-team teaser is plus 600, so we'll lock that in. And hopefully we hit these 2 parlays, and that would bring us back over that negative 40 threshold. We are now sitting at negative 43 and some change on the season. But luckily the NBA is still coming through for us.
We'll take it. We'll keep that to ourselves, though.
All right, everybody. If you've got 5 extra seconds to rate, review, and subscribe to the podcast, wherever you get your podcast, we would greatly appreciate it. And make sure you recommend the North End podcast to all of your Austin FC brethren. And if you're watching on the YouTube channel, hit that subscribe button, help us grow the podcast. You can hit the notification bell to know when a live stream pops up or a new episode goes live. And of course, on this episode, hit that thumbs up, like the video, help us battle the YouTube algorithm overlords. Atone for your sins. Wash yourselves clean in the breast milk of the North End. We will be back next Wednesday talking everything that happens in the Austin FC universe between now and then, recapping some game 3s in the MLS playoffs, and of course, bringing all of the typical nonsense, the conclusion of the 2023 goals bracket, and hopefully some units for our wallets. Enjoy your weekend. We will see you back here next Wednesday. Until then, he's E. I'm Zach. Vamos Austin FC, everybody. Goodbye.